A lot going on right now, in case you can't figure it out. Also, in the hockey world, the Hockey Hall of Fame announcement came down within the last hour. We have one, two, three, four. We have 6 new members of the Hockey Hall of Fame, Tim. We'll celebrate them. But also, as is the case, people on social media like to complain about a lot of things. There was a lot of chatter about some omissions. Brian Burke is one of the 18 votes in this year's Hall of Fame nomination. I believe the deliberation began at around 11 a.m. Eastern. Berkey, I can only imagine how long these take. I was in a Lou Marsh vote once, and I'm still recovering from it. How long was this, and how heated do these things get?
Well, not very heated. We were there till after 4, so 5 hours, I guess, to go over. But it's all the work you do before. So the submissions are made, the names are nominated, and then the people who nominate them, who are all members of the committee, make a written submission to accompany the nomination, and they're detailed. A great deal of work goes into them, and the presentations are excellent, and we debate the merits of each candidate, and then we vote. So, yeah, a lot of people complain about it, but they can go pound sand. It's like being a judge in a beauty contest, right? You're never going to get it right for everybody. So, in my mind, it's a real solid class. I'm really happy with today, and I think we got the right guys and the right woman.
All right, let's talk about the class, because there's one question that Sid and I always seem to have, and it's a similar one that one of the guys that we grew up in the business with, Greg Sansoni, always brought up back in the day. When the arguments are made, what makes a guy a Hall of Famer in, say, his 24th or 20th year and not in his 2nd, 4th, or 10th year?
Well, it depends on the strength of the group, right? A lot of this, if you come in a year when, we can see when the list comes out of eligible players, and we look and we're like, oh, good Lord, no one who's on the waiting list has a chance. If you get 4 top NHL players retire in the same year, you got Thornton coming up, you got Yager coming up, you got Marlowe coming up. If those guys all walk the same year, well, guess what? That's not a year you want to be trying to get in. Right. So I think a lot of it is the strength of the class that you come up in for a vote, and sometimes it just takes time. You start thinking about it and weigh in on it. I think, in this case, Kevin Lowe probably should have gotten in before Doug Wilson. That's his partner, his defense partner. I wrote that down. That's how stupid I am. Right now in the class, I wrote down his defense partner.
It's been a long day, bro.
Long day. Yes, it's been a long day. Yeah. Sorry, folks.
No problem.
Kevin Lowe and Doug Wilson probably should have gotten in before, but didn't. Again, the strength of the class they come up against, but they're clearly worthy guys. Marian Hossa was a great player, and I don't think really appreciated for the value he brought to the game. And I think this is very, very fitting for him. And Jerome McGinley was, that was not a long discussion.
Yeah, he goes in. And Kim St. Pierre's career with 3 Olympic gold medals and 5 world championships. It's just I have nothing, Berkey. I got nothing wrong with the class. Honestly, I got nothing wrong. Yeah. And Kevin Lowe, quite frankly, the Hall should have a rule: 5 or more cups, you go in right away. I don't know what Kevin Lowe is doing out there. I know he's not the offensive defenseman everyone falls in love with, but 6 cups and you waited this long. I'm glad he's in. I'm really happy he's in.
Well, I'll tell you a story. When Marc Messier played for me, I won't talk about the deliberations because we're not allowed to do that, but I will tell you a story. When Marc Messier played for me in Vancouver, we were sitting next to him in a stall one day after practice and just shooting the breeze. And I said, who ran the room in Edmonton on those cup teams? I said, was it you? He said, nope. I said, Gretz? He said, nope. He said, Kevin Lowe. He said, he ran the room. He was the leader. And guy after guy that played with Kevin said that in New York, in Edmonton. Great leader, underrated, elite defender, and underrated offensively, underrated toughness. And Doug Wilson just had the misfortune of playing in an era where he was going head-to-head with Ray Bourque and Rod Langway and guys like that all the time for awards and all-star teams. But he scored 39 goals one year. He was a great offensive player, and he and Bob Murray were the top defense pair. They were the shutdown pair. So he put those points up playing against the best lines on the other team. It's phenomenal.
You said the value he brought to the game, and it stuck in my head. And listen, my nunna boarded Dick Duff when he was at St. Mike's and with the Maple Leafs. Sid knows this. He's been a close family friend since. So I'm all about the winner. Guy Carbonneau last year, Kevin Lowe this year. But But how do you quantify? Is it a story like the one that you just told about Messier? How do you quantify the value guys like that bring to the game?
Well, and that's the trick of being on a selection committee. There's no bar, right? You can't say, okay, Guy Carbonneau did not score as much as this guy, so we're putting this guy in. It's what they brought to the game, the elements they provided on winning teams or the great careers they had. And it should be possible to have a shorter career like Cam Neely did on the Comet theory. So Pavel Bure and Cam Neely, they're not there statistically, but for Eric Lindros, for 4 or 5 years, they were the best player in the league. And that should be worth something. And the fact that they played a certain way and got hurt, that shouldn't hurt their chance to getting in. Also, you look on the Cup teams, they've all got shutdown people. Guy Carbonneau was a good offensive player. He was a great scorer in junior, but turned into a great shutdown guy, elite penalty killer, elite faceoff guy. There's got to be room in the hall for guys like that are such integral parts of Cup teams, but don't have the stats to prove it. So that's the balancing act. What did Kevin Lowe provide? 6 rings? Yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer. That's what he provided.
Pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. Hockey Hall of Fame class of 6 was announced within the last hour. Brian Burke was on the 18-person committee. He's been kind enough after a long day to join us on this edition of Tim and Sid. Berkey, forgive me if I don't phrase this properly. I'm not clear completely on what you can or cannot say. So for apologies ahead of time. The feeling was going in from people who weren't on the committee, this is Alfredsson's year. Were you surprised he didn't get it?
Okay, so we're not allowed to even talk about who was officially nominated or was not. Fair so enough. I wouldn't answer that question. Okay. And keep in mind, you're talking royalty here. You're talking royalty. The guys that just miss or don't get in, that are in the discussion or have been nominated in prior years, they're elite players. People don't nominate players and builders that aren't elite. Kim St. Pierre was an elite goaltender. Like, she wouldn't have been nominated if she wasn't in that discussion. So you're having to make differentiations. And I heard a lot about Alex McGillney, who played for me in Vancouver, and Alfie, and this guy and that guy. And the fact of the matter is, you can make a case that an additional 10 to Rowan, Kachuk, guys Turgeon should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. But the people in the room have to weigh their eligibility, their candidacy against the other people in the group. And they're not easy calls, and they're not going to be popular all the time. And I could care less.
Can I say, do you think that Daniel Alfredsson will be a Hall of Famer?
I think there's a group of athletes in a very narrow bandwidth. If you look, there's a group of players that people are banging on the door for that are in a 20 to 25 point separation bandwidth, that are all close, and you can make a case for each one. So Daniel Alfredsson was a great player. Keith Tkachuk was a great player. Pierre Turgeon was a great player. Like, you're talking about guys that really distinguished themselves. Now, are they good enough to step over the doorway into the Hockey Hall of Fame? And it might happen someday. We'll see.
Berkey, how much does international accomplishments weigh into your own thought process heading into these deliberations?
It's a big part, but keep in mind, some of these guys don't get to play in world championships because their teams have had success. So, like Nick Lidstrom, I don't know how many world championships he played in, but it couldn't have been too many because they played into June every bloody year. So, like, there's a lot of guys who never got the opportunity, like Sid Crosby, who's represented Canada beautifully, but if he played on a poorer team, he would have 3 or 4 more world championships. The players that aren't available, that's a good thing when you're not available to represent your country in the world championships because you're still playing. So it is a big factor. But on some teams, it's like, there's some guys that had great careers on really good teams and never got to go overseas. And that's a good thing. So it is a factor for sure. Individual awards are a factor. All-star teams Definitely. Are a factor. Production's a factor. So there's a lot that goes into it. At the end of the day, I'm really comfortable with this class. I'm really comfortable with everyone who was admitted and inducted, Kenny Holland too. I think it's a great class. I'm very proud of this class.
Berkey, we know it's been a long day, and we really appreciate that you took some time and came on with us. So thank you very much.
Anytime,
I'm offering up some of Sid's JD whenever we get together, okay?
Next time.
Is there any left? Let me check.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll get back to you, Berkey. I'll text you. I'll let you know. I think it's full. Good stuff, Berkey. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.